right now, the numbers are just staggering. Last week, our download was close to 2,000. Now, let me give you an idea how this compares. The first week in March, it was 75, with 80% of those people just being on temporary layoffs. So we really had a very small amount of people that actually had lost their jobs. Now, with numbers that high, is that we know in the past, and this even happened in 2008-9 when we had a recession, that probably 80% or more will just go back to the regular job. So we're not so concerned right now about reemployment as we are making sure that our community members are able to access the system, to be able to receive benefits while we are on pause. So that is the focus. Now, we know from our conversations with the Department of Labor that the system became just totally overwhelmed. And because of that, the complaint was that people couldn't access the line. The online was crashing. The phone lines were just so overwhelmed that it wasn't even taking calls. And so those were a major concern. Now, the Department of Labor is trying. They have pulled people from other departments to be able to try and handle the phone volume. Now, I think it's getting better. And if you have employees or you're an employee trying to be able to jump on board, is that it should be starting to ease. Now, they have added Sunday hours from 7:30 until, let me make sure I'm telling you the right one, 7:30 until 8 p.m. on Sundays. That's new. We've been telling people jump on early, because this is something that people typically are those high hours from like 10 till 3, but jump on and tell people jump on at 8 a.m. It's open until like 7:30. On Saturday, 7:30 in the morning, get up early and call in. Sunday morning, 7:30, or try close to 8 p.m. Now, as part of the declaration of the disaster area, is that individuals who are self-employed are eligible to receive unemployment benefits. And for those who are self-employed, just go on to the New York State Department of Labor and you pull it up and it says to apply for unemployment insurance. It's the second box down that says if you are self-employed, you can click on that and work your way through online. Now, I will tell you that somebody said, oh, I got up really early and went on. It really doesn't open until those hours. So Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m., and Saturdays, 7:30, and Sundays, 7:30. So get on early. Now, for people you may know that are really, really frustrated, is that I will tell you that it is retroactive back to the date that they became unemployed. So if you are on week 3 and you haven't been able to get through, and your unemployment benefit will go back. Now, coupled with that is that pandemic unemployment assistance. We all know it as the PUA. Now, that is that $600 that will be added to the unemployment insurance benefit. Now, what I've been hearing from employers is that I want to recall my employees, but they're saying if I stay home, I make more money. But laws have not been suspended during this time, which means if you recall your employees and they do not respond, is that they are no longer eligible for unemployment. I have a telephone number. If you're an employer and this is happening to you, call 1-888-598-2077. excuse me, I tickle my throat. That is a 24-hour line. So you can call and say, look, I recalled my employees, but they don't want to come. Now, again, in that PUA, there is if the person says, well, I'm fearful, I have an underlying medical condition, is that I do not want to come out, then it's a totally different story. I see we have a question.
I put out in the chat if you do have any questions to just
Okay.
submit it in there. So if anybody has one, we are keeping track of that and we can address those at the end. I'll be asking Cheryl them as they're submitted in the chat feature.
So individuals, now we were supposed to have a conference call yesterday with the Department of Labor, and that did not take place, but they sent out a question, sort of question and answer for the PUA, and there's some sort of, excuse me while I take a drink here. There is something I want to, and I will ask them today, but they have one question saying that the PUA is just going to be 50% of the average weekly wage, which is what unemployment is. And then there's another question that says, will I get the $600? And the answer to that is yes. So I'm not quite sure how that is going to work, but I will ask that. I was going to ask it on the conference call yesterday, but it did get canceled. So, and again, though, that benefit extends through July 31st. Now, for people who have exhausted their unemployment, that is extended. So people, if you know people and they've had a claim, if they have their ID number and password, they can go back on, reopen that claim, and there's a 13-week right now extension on UI benefits. Now that's especially important for a lot of our seasonal workers, especially in the tourism and hospitality sector that are typically laid off in the winter. Those around the lake and the river, restaurants that close, other retailers that close during the winter. And so they're on unemployment. Now, unemployment is right now 26 weeks. And so many of them have exhausted or near exhausting, and they can go back on and get the 13 weeks of extension. So I don't know if there's any real important questions. Anybody want to ask any questions? That would be great.
We did get one here. It reads, will the additional federal funds be available for the shared work program?
Now that is a good question, and I'll have to find that out. I'm glad you asked, because I will send that up on shared work. Okay. So I'll ask, and then I'll send that off to Jessica, the answer to that, to see if those on shared work. Now, for those of you who do not know what shared work is, this program's been around since about 2008. This is where businesses slowed, and this is where you may need to lay off employees. And what it does is that you can apply for shared work. You have to go on the New York State Department of Labor if you're an employer, and it is good for 26 weeks. And this is where, if your employees work 2 days, that they have the ability to collect unemployment for 3 days. So I will ask that, or vice versa, 3 days, or whatever the work schedule is, they'll be able to collect unemployment for the days that they don't work. Now that's important because in this state, we do not have partial unemployment benefits. There are states that do, meaning if you were working full-time and you all of a sudden are working part-time, that you can collect UI benefits for those days that you do not work. We do not have that in New York State. So shared work is the avenue if you're an employer and you just need to uh, ramp down so that you can stay in business, is you can apply for shared work. Now you have to apply. It does take, they say that they're pushing those through in a week, 2 weeks. To be able to verify all your employees, you're going to have to list your employees, so that they can go through and see who's eligible for unemployment and who is not. So it does take a little while to get that, but don't lay anybody off until you get your approval. And then your employees would be able to collect partial unemployment. And I will ask if the PUA does apply against that.
Thank you. And another one we have for a question in our chat is, do you have any information regarding the 50% reimbursement for employers who have self-insured for unemployment? We have not furloughed many, but are getting claims from previous staff.
Well, you could, and I'll tell you why. Because if someone worked for you and then 2 months ago became unemployed, is when they go back that quarter, it will fall on you. And so when they look at how many weeks somebody has been unemployed, yes, you could get claims for
Thank you.
employees that are no longer working for you.
I appreciate the answer, and these are excellent questions, so keep them up in the chat feature here, because this is such a rare opportunity to be able to ask somebody who's so knowledgeable about these particular topics and themes that we're experiencing through the COVID-19 crisis about New York State unemployment. I know personally it's something that I don't have any experience in, so it's just so wonderful to have you here this morning and to be able to ask you these questions pertaining to this topic. So keep up the great questions, everyone, in this chat feature. And if we don't have an answer, as Cheryl said, we can talk afterward, and I can make sure that we get that response to you with that official status as it pertains to what we're all experiencing today. All right. There was a follow-up from the same individual who submitted that question that says, I understand the claims from previous staff, just the 50% reimbursement under the CARES Act. So I guess that's clarification for the question that had been asked.
On the PUA, I'm assuming, because that's what applies to unemployment, is from what I understand, that is not going against the employer. That is a federal reimbursement to the state. So similarly, back when we had the last recession, is that New York State had exhausted their unemployment trust fund. And so then the federal government was, beefing that up. But I do know that employers, their premiums did go up after that. So I'm not sure of what the outcome or the fallout's going to be from this period of unemployment. Let's hope it doesn't last very long. But obviously the safety of our community is number one. And so we would not want to put anybody in harm's way. So we will listen to our officials and take guidance from them. Our office is currently kind of open. We have a very skeletal staff there. We have staff working at home, so if you need to call, we are getting around 200 calls a day. And so staff are picking up those calls and returning those calls. So when you drive by, there is only a couple of cars in the parking lot, and we rotate in. We're actually an agency, a department of Jefferson County, and so we are on the 25% staffing level that we were kind of mandated to maintain. I'm at home myself for the next couple weeks, and that's because we traveled out of state, even though we didn't get out and say anything. Is I'll be working at home this week and next week, and then I rotate in and out with other staff. So if people do call even though there's nobody in the parking lot and there's only a couple cars, is that we are returning all phone calls. And 99.9% of all phone calls that are being received are regarding unemployment questions and the fact that people can't get through. So we're just telling people, keep trying. Use those off hours to your advantage.
That's excellent. And for those of you who might have joined us a little bit late, and we did connect this with our Facebook. Again, this is Cheryl Mayforth. She works with the workplace. She's an absolute excellent resource and has been a partner to the Chamber of Commerce for many years as we have worked with economic development in areas of this nature with both of our Job and Career Expo and also with the very popular Workforce 2020, now Workforce Connections. So if you knew it in its previous name as I did when I was in high school, it's a really excellent program, and we're really happy to have her here with us this morning. So I do encourage any other questions that you have to be submitted in the chat feature. We are recording this, so we will put it up on our website as we have the previous installments of Coffee Talk. So it will be available to share with your staff or with somebody who might have a particular question about New York State unemployment that's addressed here this morning. So I really just want to encourage that and let you know that we're going to continue to do this and build upon Coffee Talk as a resource for our community across the North Country. So again, if you are just joining us, please ask questions. We are really fortunate to have Cheryl with us here this morning.
Is there an, okay. Is that another question there?
I'm not sure. Let's see.
Can you hear me?
Oh,
yes.
Yes, I'm not familiar with this format. This is the first time I've used this. Do we submit our questions to someone remotely and then you answer them, or do we talk to you directly?
I'm not sure what it looks like coming in from a phone. I am using my laptop. Typically, we get our questions in through the chat feature, but since you are audibly speaking to us, if you want to ask one, we'd certainly welcome that.
Okay, my question pertains to myself and two family members. I run a fishing charter business on the St. Lawrence River. I have a daughter that has a childcare business run out of her home, and I have a granddaughter that works in a beauty parlor as an anesthetist. So all three of us are self-employed.
Right.
What procedures do we go through to claim unemployment?
What you need to do is go on to the New York State Department of Labor. Okay. Mm-hmm. And if you Google that, it'll say file an unemployment claim. And if you hit that, there's a bunch of boxes, and one says if you are self-employed, click here. So that's what you need to do. And again, not only would you be eligible for unemployment. Now, when you go to do that, now this is the key, is make sure you have everything with you. For instance, you may want to have last year's tax returns to show what your earnings are, because if you have to get up and get information, most likely it's going to time you out. Okay, so make sure you have your FEN number with you, your earnings, any of that information, so that you can just go on and do it. Because like I said, if you get up and have to go look for information, it will time you out and kick you out. If it kicks you out before you hit that button to complete it, you'll have to start all over again. So have that information very handy so that you can do it. And again, do those early mornings. And I know people who have, and it does work quite well. Now, once you have your claim in there, New York State has waived the wait week. Typically, you become unemployed, you file for unemployment, you have to wait a week, recertify, because you will get a telephone number that says, on this particular date, you need to call. That's simply to say that you are able, available, ready to work, and that will trigger a payment. And that would trigger also that PUA. You do not have to do anything different to get that that PUA assistance. Okay, so once you file for your UI, that's an automatic.
Okay, I got one other question.
Sure.
From watching the news, some of the other states are handing out hard copies of the unemployment claims because of the problem of, in one instance, one lady had called 50 times in 1 week and was unsuccessful in getting through. Does New York State anticipate going to that system where people can pick up hard copies of their unemployment claims?
As far as I know, they have no plans to do that. What they are trying to do is increase server and to add additional phone operators. So this has been an automated system for 20 years. Half the problem is that it's a 20-year-old system that has not seen any real upgrades, and they will admit to that. So they are taking steps now to improve the system, adding operators so that things will move a little quicker. But with everything else, they're pulling people from other departments. They're not trained in this area. And so that's been the real issue. We have not heard that they're going to go back to a paper system. Now, at one time, we would have been called the unemployment office, but that hasn't been in 20 years. So we refer to ourselves as the reemployment office, because typically what happens is if you are on unemployment and you got your wait week, and then the following week you certify, that information comes to our office, and we typically, if you're not on a temporary layoff, you are called in, and then we try to assist you with finding other employment. Now, obviously, we don't have enough people. In the last 2 weeks, our download has been close to 3,000. There is no way we're going to be able to see 3,000 people, not in Watertown, New York, or Lowville. So what we do know is employers are filing for temporary layoff. Now, this state considers a temporary layoff 4 weeks. So at that point, I'm sure we're going to be extending that. But people, we have no handle whatsoever on who is really permanently laid off, because we do know we're going to have some winners and some losers. We know that we've already have some retailers that were teetering on the edge, which has been in the news. We don't know if they will make it. We don't know if stores are going to be temporarily closed and then come back and then build their business again. We really don't know if that's going to happen. There's even been some chain restaurants that have been kind of teetering on the edge, and so we don't know whether they will make it. So we're not sure what's going to happen when we finally get back to some sense of normalcy.
All right, sir, thanks for those questions. I want to get back to the chat because we have a few more that have been asked there. We do have one that says, while we are currently reactive to the situation, are there any thoughts on proactive recovery efforts?
Well, there are. There's a task force that has been developed. It's called the Jefferson County Economic Recovery Task Force, headed by our IDA with numerous public officials, and talking about those types of programs to get things started. Now, when it comes to those who will be permanently laid off, we will do what we typically, you'll hear us do when when we have a massive layoff, is we go to work and we do a lot of job retraining. We also do a lot of job matching so that we can try to quickly get people back into the workforce. Now, a good example is when Concentrix went down, is that was 465 people. There were, in fact, you heard me on TV many, many times saying how we were having a labor shortage. And so what we were able to do is really plug a lot of those people in. And a lot of those people found new employment very quickly. But people don't get to see what's behind the scenes and what we're doing in the office, because that's when we have to really put our nose to the grindstone and meet with all these individuals, help them with resume development, do job matches, and able to help those people find new employment. Now, with that job labor shortage, is we were starting to notice that our absorption rate, meaning even though it's been considered good economic conditions, is that at one point, those companies that were going out of business, Ruby Tuesdays, Friendlies, a lot of those that that we have seen, TGI Fridays, and the retailers, is that Bon-Ton, Sears, the big ones, that those people were being picked up very quickly. So we're not sure when this all falls out what we're going to see as permanent layoffs, and if we have reached a saturation point, meaning that this area could go into a recession. Nobody wants to talk about that, but fallout from this.
Thank you. A few of the other questions we have in the chat, one includes, are there any areas or businesses that are of surprise with unemployment claims in our area?
Actually, no, because when we talk about what was considered non-essential businesses, that we knew that the unemployment rate was going to go sky high. I'm estimating it's probably somewhere between 25 and 30%. And as you know, I mean, we are an area that's very heavy on the service sector. And so we know that restaurants, even though many of them are still open for takeout, they just don't need as many employees when you don't need your wait staff, or your takeout business has been a lot slower than what you would normally see. And we've seen businesses that typically are not set up for takeout that are temporarily closed at this time. And all you have to do is drive around, but you shouldn't be driving around, you should be at home. Protecting everybody, yourself plus family members.
Excellent point. So another question that was submitted in the chat feature, I'll read that now. Mm-hmm. We are expanding through this. And then it has a ... We can work completely virtually across the country now. If you know anyone looking for something like this. Bill, do you want to go ahead, and I'm assuming that was more of a statement for communication. If you want to put your contact information, or if we want to get in touch so that you guys can get connected, I think that might be an excellent connection to be made, if that was your intent.
Sure, thank you.
Because what I would suggest is we are still working virtually ourselves. And so we are taking job orders. So I would contact Maura Emer, which is MEAU, well, ER. Well, anyways, call our offices, 315-786-3651. and let them know that you need somebody to take a job order, and they will do that for you. Okay. And we are still sending those out. Whenever a job order comes into our office, it gets sent to our 19 what we would call partner agencies, and that includes out to Fort Drum, and everybody who is involved in job placement, so that that job lead can get as much exposure as possible. That does fall on the New York State Department of Labor website, so that individuals who are looking for a job and see yours and say, this looks good, I might want to look into relocating to Watertown, New York. Also, our military members that come in and out, that's a place where they go to be able to see what's available in our community. So yes, please list that with us, and we will do what we normally do. Okay.
Thank you. And for any chamber members who are listening, if you are hiring, one of your benefits as a member of the Chamber of Commerce is that you can list any job openings on our website as well. So please maximize on those resources during this time. All right. If there aren't any other questions, I would like to welcome Cheryl to give just a closing statement before I give any announcements about what the Chamber of Commerce has coming up on the horizon. So I'll just give a second here, just in case there are any other questions before we wrap things up this morning.
One thing I want to direct you to is the New York State Department of Labor website on filing claims. There are Q&As on there that might be helpful, especially for those who are self-employed, those who want to engage in the shared work program. You know, one of the things when something like this comes out, this is similar to when this stimulus came out in 2009. These things are developed quite quickly, and that means they're not totally flushed out. And so as we move down the road, we will get determinations, we'll get further guidance, so that we're able to answer questions for you. So bear in mind all of these programs that came with the CARES Act develop so quickly that there are questions.
All right, wonderful. We have one comment, but it was just somebody headed out for another meeting, but they said, thank you, Cheryl, and thank you to the chamber. So just in case you saw that notification, Cheryl, I thought I would read that. Do you have any other bits of information you want to leave us with at this time, Cheryl?
No, but if you do have questions, my email address is c.mayforth, MAYFORTH, @co.jefferson.ny.us. So you can find me off the Jefferson County website as well. We are listed under employment and training, and email addresses are available there. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for
thank you for having me this morning.
We really truly appreciate your expertise and your time. So thank you so much. We do appreciate that. And thank you everybody else who was able to join us this morning. Again, we did record it. So if you know of anyone who would find this information particularly useful, we will have it up on our website later this afternoon. So I do encourage you to do that. And if you have any questions, please reach out to the Chamber of Commerce. Please reach out to the workplace. We are your resources during this time. And even if it's just like, hey, we really appreciated Cheryl coming on. I didn't catch her email. Can you get it for me? And you can't find it on the Jefferson County website. Reach out to the Chamber of Commerce. We want to make sure that we're your partner in achieving success during this time. That being said, I just have a few announcements about what we have going on. In reaction to the COVID-19 crisis, we did put up a resource and information page on our website, watertownny.com, and we're continuing to update that just about every day. So if you missed our conference call yesterday about relief funding opportunities and you have an interest in that, it was recorded. We do have that up on our website, as well as some links to additional funding resources, general health practices, resources and other information that the New York State guidelines have put out. We are going to continue to do coffee talk every Tuesday and Thursday so that we can get together, have a digital dialogue, continue to network virtually at a safe distance during this time. So please join us at Tuesday. We're actually going to do a special edition of Coffee Talk next Tuesday called Espresso Edition. So you're going to want to register on our website because it's going to have 4 different times. So if 9:30 is not a good time for you and you want to join earlier in the morning or later in the day, we're going to have breakout sessions with about 10 people in each of those sessions. And we're going to allow for a little bit more of an intimate conversation for some very intentional networking. And we hope you can join us for that. Again, that's on our website, watertownny.com. We've got our resource page as well as our coffee talk page. You can look up either, whether or not you want to just see this recording later or just get some information about what we have coming up. And if you want to be added to our email list to get notifications about these emails, just drop your information in the chat and I would gladly add you to that distribution list. But thank you again, everyone, for coming. Cheryl, you have been absolutely wonderful. We're so glad that you could join us this morning, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their day.
Yes, be safe out there, folks. Bye-bye.